Chaplin, again, came out in 1992. It, it was directed by Richard Attenborough. It stars Robert Downey Jr., Dan Aykroyd, Geraldine Chaplin, Kevin Dunn, who plays J. Edgar Hoover, which is awesome. Anthony Hopkins,
Kevin
Mildred Stewart.
Kline, not Kevin
Yeah.
Dunn.
Oh, there's a Kevin Dunn in here too. He plays J. Edgar Hoover. And then there's Kevin
No, Kevin
Kline.
Kline played J. Edgar Hoover.
No, he did not. Check.
What?
Dude, I'm reading it right off the cast list. Kevin Kline
Okay,
is Douglas
you're probably
Fairbanks.
right. I'm probably
Kevin
that's
Kline
what I'm
plays
thinking of.
yes. Kevin Kline plays Douglas
Yep.
Fairbanks.
My bad.
And yeah, Kevin Dunn was J. Edgar Hoover. Moving on. Diane Lane, Penelope Ann Miller, Paul Rees, John Thaw, love Marissa Tomei in this, Nancy Travis, and James Woods. So this is the life and times of Charlie Chaplin. In short, he's got a crazy mom, and the dad is when he's young, he's trying to get him into comedy. He eventually gets work in America. He comes here to do films in the golden age of Hollywood during the silent film era. He gets here. He's in a movie. They have Marissa Tomei's character who is directing, and she's terrible. And he was like, "Look, how much worse could this possibly be? Let me do this myself." He's created this character called the Tramp, which is what if you think it's like Charlie Chaplin, you think him and the Tramp are like the same guy, and that's just who this guy was. This this silly guy with a cane who used to poke people in the butt with it, that sort of thing. Nope, that was a character called the Tramp. Anyway, he goes on to have this really successful career playing the Tramp in a zillion movies. He eventually has his own studio. He makes these wildly popular pictures. He manages to piss off J. Edgar Hoover and get accused of being a communist. He makes a movie that seems to criticize America vis-a-vis the immigrant. This is all done under the framing device of he's telling his life story to his biographer, who is a fictional character, and he's played by Sir Anthony Hopkins. So there's a lot of like explaining certain, cut to an explanation of why things were happening or what the deal was or why this particular woman he was with was just a bitch. It's a great line. I just thought she was a total bitch. You get to see a lot of the inspiration for his films. You get to see, during one of his movies, his entire marriage falls apart because all he cares about is making this movie. At one point, one of the movies that he's making is declared an asset in a divorce, and so they in like what feels like a very stylized choice, they do an in-movie version of like a Charlie Chaplin or like a silent film era comedy where everything is sped up and there's a chase, and it's literally like they're running away with reels of footage because they don't want to have to submit. They don't want to give it to the ex-wife. This you go through 87 of his fucking people that he married, and it ends with him getting, I think, like a Lifetime Academy Award. And he goes to Switzerland to escape the Red Scare, from what I remember, and he ends up being ejected from the United States. And so I think he comes back long enough to receive the award, and then shortly thereafter he died. It is said in the movie he is the most important person to ever come out of Hollywood. He is the most famous person in the world. His movies are an inspiration were inspirations for years to come. It's an enduring legacy of a man and of a character and of a career. Let me say this of the movie, and I'll let you cut in to talk. You sent me a message before the podcast started tonight of, hey, we don't need to necessarily lean too heavy on the craft here. There's not a tremendous amount of style in any of these movies, but I think the themes that they're getting at, the greater points that they're talking about, are more important than the craft. And I didn't disagree with you, but this is the most stylized of the three.
Oh, far and away.
Stan and Ollie and Judy are pretty straightforward, and they are carried in large part by individual performances of the leads. Chaplin's the most well-rounded in terms of everything is firing on all cylinders of the three movies. It's just weird that it got mixed reviews, by the way. Robert Downey Jr., I think, won an Oscar for it, but the movie in and of itself seemed to have rubbed people the wrong way. I think it's got some interesting styles. Like I said, like that bit in Utah where they're doing the sped up chase it's like a Charlie Chaplin film, or Marx Brothers, or Abbott and Costello, or Laurel and Hardy. It's funny as shit, and it kind of took me by surprise because I'd forgotten all about it. And then like they're doing this, I'm like, ha, they're doing an in movie thing. Beyond that, you know, when we talked about The Great Gatsby, we talked about costumes, the style of the Roaring Twenties, and
Mhm.
I'm definitely paying attention to stuff like that now. The style of an age, and this was not only just individually transformative in that Robert Downey Jr. ceases to exist, and what you see is what you think is Charlie Chaplin, but also I was really transported to the early 20th century with the way people talked. Even Kevin Kline's character, like Douglas Fairbanks, he had a very distinct way that he spoke. It's not quite some of the stuff Kubrick was doing. We talked about that a few weeks ago. But not see this Charlie Chaplin, none of that. But there was definitely they definitely zhuzhed it up with a lot of style and performance, a lot of style and line delivery, style and costume, style and setting. Um, for a movie that is supposed to be a biopic of this man's life and times, it feels like a movies movie. Like I never necessarily felt like I was getting a window into an old world so much as I knew I was watching a fictionalized telling of this man's life. Everything feels alive and colorful and very Oz-like. Speaking of Judy, I love this movie. I watched it last weekend, and I don't really have a bad thing to say about it. I don't have a bad thing to say about Chaplin. I mean,
Oh,
were there not great things he did in the movie? Sure. Neglecting your family to make a movie is never good. But I would say for the most part, it kind of reminds you of what it takes to be successful in the land of opportunity. You have to have a degree of bravery, creativity, um, stubbornness, and a willingness to fail and keep at it again.
well, and on another level, I would go so far as to point out, and this is going to seem like a big statement, but really give it some thought, and I want to hear your reaction to it. Stupid people cannot consistently make objectively great comedy.
It's fair.
I don't think I don't think you can truly excel at making people laugh in any medium without being kind of exceptionally aware, probably more than a little bit neurodivergent, um, and extremely introspective and sensitive. I mean, even if you think of some of the more vulgar, foul-mouthed, really legendary comedians, and you go back and you really dissect their material, there is 100% of thought and intent, and planning and practice and vision in what they're doing. That's how you get people who can kind of routinely continue to evolve and be entertaining and be beloved for
Right.
making people laugh, because they're always in tune with both themselves and with the
Okay.
moment
I got to jump in here
at the
with going
same
to be
time.
your favorite part of the podcast. It's going to be the wrestling reference of the night.
Yes.
Okay. There's Dusty Rhodes, and then there's the fuck's his name? The Red Rooster.
Terry Taylor.
Thank you. There's Dusty
Go
Rhodes.
on.
There's Dusty Rhodes, and there's Terry Taylor. You give anything to Dusty Rhodes, and I'm going somewhere with this. I'm going to lead this right back into the movie. You give anything to Dusty Rhodes will take it and make it wonderful and engaging and make you money with it. Dusty Rhodes was a
Mm-hmm.
genius.
Mm-hmm.
Say what you will about his presentation, his looks, the way he spoke. He didn't always hit it out of the park. No one ever does. Your best baseball players on earth didn't hit a home run every time at bat. And I think to expect that and then take away from people's legacy is unfair. But again, Dusty Rhodes always took chicken shit for the most part and gave you chicken salad. Genius. Terry
Mhm.
Taylor,
Good
given the
hand.
same given the same level of bad ideas, was not able to turn around and make it anything decent. Not a genius. Perfectly serviceable mechanic, not a
Mhm.
genius. Dusty Rhodes was
Yeah.
a genius. Terry Taylor was a wrestler. The scene, my favorite scene in the movie, relative to what I'm talking about, is Charlie Chaplin's putting on this suit that does not fit, and he finds a hat to kind of complete the ensemble. Then he sees a cane, and then there's a shot of him kind of walking away from the camera, and he doesn't quite know how to work with the pants, and so he does that waddle, and he figures it out as he's walking. He's like, oh, if I do this, and then if I do this, and then he took an ill-fitting suit and a random cane he found and a hat, and it was like, I can make chicken salad out of this. This is all garbage. This is all bullshit. But I can do something with this. That's genius.
Mhm.
And it's such a subtle thing. It was such a little detail. But from where he walks in the close to the camera to where he ends up by the time they cut away from it, his whole walk changes. And he finds the Charlie Chaplin character. And it's just in that walk. Brilliant. Genius.
Yeah. I mean, Chaplin, thematically, when I think about the movie and when I think about the man, I think of a man who was far ahead of his time.
Yeah.
In terms of the kind of bold, independent control that he
Mm-hmm.
wanted to have over his art. And he was a man who held a deep conviction that it was indeed absolute art.
Yeah.
Um, he was willing to push and sacrifice and play hardball for that. And to use this bully pulpit that he'd kind of pratfallen into and use it to remind the world I'm not your performing monkey. I'm a human being with thoughts who sees what's going on around me. And I'm not going to be entirely silenced by it, nor am I going to be driven back.
The best line in this
But
movie is when he's talking to Douglas Fairbanks as they're playing tennis or badminton, whichever one it was.
mhm,
And he says to him, they're not going to like a foreigner criticizing the country. And he says, it is
no,
precisely because I am a foreigner and I love this country that I can criticize it.
exactly.
110% right.
Exactly. But the other thing that I think of is I think of how, not unlike Sam Laurel, how ambitious he really was at heart in where he wanted to take his career, where he wanted to take comedy, and everything that he wanted to learn how to do more of and to bring to the screen. He was met with, the equivalent back then of, say the line, Bart. Anybody wanted was, haha, little tramp fall down.
Mm-hmm.
And he believed that he had more to offer. And we talk about problems that we see nowadays. Um, hell, look at Robert Downey Jr. Look at the fact that the man is undeniably a generational talent as an actor who has made so many fantastic movies, so many transformative performances over the years. But the first thing anybody wants to talk about is Tony fucking Stark. And I mentioned in the chat with you, and unfortunately he was on you tonight, Dorian, how this is something that's becoming emblematic of a lot of top-notch performers that we're seeing throughout the MCU, particularly, I think, among Gen Z, probably more than any other generation. They're not associating these people as great actors who've also been in a lot of other fantastic things. Then look at Chris Evans, all they're ever going to see is Captain America. Chris Hemsworth is a top-notch actor. All anyone's going to look at him and ever see is Thor. Elizabeth Olsen, Clark Gregg, right on down the line. All these outstanding performers, and all they're ever going to be known as the characters. We make the cinema joke all the time, but it's one of the times when I think it was either Scorsese or Coppola that was criticizing that exactly. Is these performers aren't being known as actors anymore; they're just being known for the characters that they play. That's all they're being recognized at. And I mean, granted, our generation has kind of had that too. I think of Twilight. And my wife and I were just talking the other day about how it's astounding that at the time we thought that um, uh, Kristen Stewart and Robert Pattinson were just the most wooden dog shit actors to top a squat on a screen in years. And now we found out ever since then, oh, no, they're actually fantastically gifted performers. They were just given complete dreck to work with. Um, so it's that frustrating danger of being pigeonholed. Some people come out of it like Robin Williams and are able to really get out there and display what they've got. But a lot of people, once they kind of get pigeonholed early on because it's what's getting them work, they don't quite find those roles or that work that is able to really show people what they can do.
A really quick aside. Do you remember one of the reasons why I wanted to watch Insatiable with you was because the girl who was the lead in Insatiable had come out of the Disney XD or
God, you're right.
Disney Channel.
Insatiable. I haven't thought about that one in a while.
I've been listening to a lot of our old stuff, not just you or my own, so just old stuff in general. Long story. Anyway, my point is, like, I was very interested in that actress whose name now escapes me, but she was on a show called Jessie, and that's where I knew her from because my kids love that show. And she was very much branded Disney actress, which is the kiss of death. And you really have to then you really have to make an effort to un-Disneyfy yourself. You don't quite have to go the Elizabeth Berkley route, showgirls and blow up on the launch pad. But she did Insatiable, and she was great. We loved that show, and I don't think we wanted to go past 2 seasons. I think by the end of the second season, we were like, we're done here.
Yeah.
But we liked the range she showed, and she definitely un-Disneyfied herself. Another one, Dove Cameron, I believe it was. Dove Cameron does the the Disney, the kids of the Disney villains movies.
Descendants?
Descendants, yeah.
Yeah.
And she's really gone out of her way to try to wipe the stink of the Descendants off of her and be like, look, I'm a
more recently, I think of Cole Sprouse.
I don't know who that is.
Sweet Life of Zack and Cody.
Okay, I am aware that's the show.
Okay, let's see. Another one. I don't know if you've heard of this one or not. Lisa Foyles is another one I think of.
Okay. Wasn't Zac Efron a Disney kid?
Oh yeah, High School Musical. Yeah.
Yeah. Look at what Zac Efron's done since then.
And I forget her name, and I forget who I want to say I think it was Mark Morrison. From the other W2M shows that I was talking to. He brought and I can't remember her name now, but he brought to my attention a former Disney kid who became a very successful porn star.
Okay.
I'm man enough to admit I looked her up. Good work.
No, it's fine. I'm not against you. I just this conversation, the direction that it just turned, I find that amusing.
Well, yeah, but again, but what it's talking about is relevant. You can go back even further and kind of look at the respective wild career trajectories of Justin Timberlake, Britney Spears, Christina Aguilera, Hilary Duff, Lindsay Lohan, Miley fucking Cyrus, all of the above. They all, with varying degrees of success, had to at some point really roll some dice to just kind of wipe that residue of the past away and say, look, this is everything you haven't wanted to see, but hopefully all that past fame has now kind of given me a little bit of clout that I can at least get it at bat to show you something else.
Right. Anything else about Chaplin before we move
on? I mean, I think that's about it. I think anybody who sees it should keep in mind that whole shut up and blank mentality towards any famous person who dares to have an opinion. Um, it ain't gone, just changed clothes.